that was real love on display, was that fiance character. Like, that was real big-hearted love. And sure, it's not as shiny and dramatic and adrenaline rush as the Noah love, but the Lon love was really the kind of love that you can grow old with.
It's like that's kind of what I felt like The Notebook was. It was Allie growing up and then regressing.
Hi, we're Kelly and Julie, and we're here to find love. If you're new here, we're two relationship coaches who like to go deep on frothy shit. So we examine the psychology and dating themes for reality TV and on rom-coms. And today we're doing it for a classic romance movie, The Notebook.
So why me and Kelly are super excited to go over this movie today is because The Notebook has had such a big impact on culture and how a lot of young people perceive relationships and maybe look for their romantic partners. Like Noah and Allie, which are the main characters of the plot, are kind of considered the quintessential couple. The relationship is so referenced, so sought after, the way that they have such high levels of intoxication, infatuation, and devotion, which is super, super attractive. But on the other hand, it masks this glorification of toxic love, and it has a really slippery slope of what a passionate relationship looks like before it can quickly slide into a lot of abuse and some dependency.
Oh, hell, well, if you're gonna do it, why wait until the summer ends, huh? Why don't you just do it right now? Huh? Come on. Come on.
Do it.
Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Oh, stop it. Oh.
In this video, the core question we want to explore is The Notebook an aspirational relationship, and where does it fall short?
So if you haven't watched The Notebook in a while, The Notebook is a movie about a young couple, Noah and Allie, who meet over the summer while she's vacationing in his hometown. Then their summer romance comes to an end, partially because of her parents who are concerned that she's wealthy, he's not. There's, some pressure from them to break up and class differences that they're battling. But mainly the relationship really ends because they aren't able to be in conflict together. But years pass and the two reunite and realize they're still in love with each other, and they decide to dump their current partners and be together once again. And the movie ends with us finding out that they in fact do spend their lives together, and in old age, Allie develops some kind of dementia. She's forgetting their story, so he reads it to her daily so she'll remember, and they pass away gently into the night together. So there's a lot of reasons, I think, why this movie is treated as like an aspirational love story. There's a lot of reasons why I think it's heralded as one of the most romantic movies of all time. To be fair, I love this movie. I actually love watching it. I think it's just so, there's so many good lines. There's so many good moments. Like, it's not over for me. It wasn't over. It's still not over. Like, there's so many good moments like that. There's so many like juicy little like scenes, and I think the actors are great in it. I think that their chemistry is great. I think that the acting is just so good. So there's a lot of reasons why this movie, it makes sense why it has been as popular as it has been. And as far as the story goes, the film really does a pretty remarkable job of painting this picture of, the dreamy, messy, kind of thrilling passion of young summer love. I think people love it because it's relatable. It's nostalgic, right? I feel like so many of us can relate to that feeling of, I don't know, a cute boy coming on to you, asking you out in front of like all your friends. They're all giggling around you and you're like embarrassed, don't know what to do. And you go on these little dates, whatever. There's this excitement that feels, I don't know, in some ways so innocent. It's like carefree, it's playful, it's indulgent, all the things that make summer love so great. And all those scenes of them walking around the street at night after the movie, dancing under the street lights, pushing the ice cream into each other's faces, going to the beach. All of these scenes are so good. The way he is googly eyes, watching her as she's dancing in the waves. There's so many really, really good scenes in this movie. I mean, that is, in fact, all the stuff that makes relationships really fun, really wonderful to be in. It's that playfulness, it's that levity, it's the affection given in such an open, free-flowing type of way. And so I think in that way, I think the movie does depict at least one aspect of relationships that is an ideal to aspire toward. Now, that's kind of where that ends, though, because from there are so many other things about Allie and Noah's relationship that is so far from the ideal. In fact, that I think it's downright unhealthy, bordering on abusive in nature. But at least that part, the part about what it feels like to fall in love, enjoy someone's company so thoroughly, I do think that they captured that actually really well. And so in that sense, it does make sense to me why so many people find this movie so endearing and lovable. But that's kind of where the pros of this movie sort of end.
It's so interesting because when I was watching the movie again, I had forgotten a lot of the elements that would make the relationship a non-starter. Because you are right that the way that he asked her out was really cute, but then he said he would harm himself.
All right, well, you leave me no other choice then. Oh my God, what are you doing? Oh, get the ball. I'm gonna ask you one more time.
She said yes, obviously it wasn't consensual, because afterwards when he followed up with her on the street, he said, I'm not taking no for an answer. When I see what I love, I've got to have it. And that's an exact quote verbatim.
I was just being drawn to you.
Oh, geez, what a line. You use that on all the girls?
No.
Right. I saw you the other night with Little Miss Ribbons.
What are you doing tonight?
What?
Or tomorrow night, or this weekend, whatever.
Why?
Why, our date?
What date?
The date that you agreed to?
No.
Yes, you did. You promised and you swore it.
Well, I guess I changed my mind.
Look, I know you get some dirty guy coming up to you on the street, you don't know him. You don't know me, but I know me. And when I see something that I like, I love it. I go crazy for it.
What are you talking about?
Well, you.
Because as soon as I heard that last night, it was so so aggressive, so unattractive, and it just set up the date on such a the wrong foot, because it's so clear that Noah has a lot of toxicity, and he is possessive and a little bit obsessive as well. And Allie is so young and impressionable, emotionally repressed as well, and she just doesn't know how to say what she really wants to people. She's always doing what people want her to do.
No matter what I do, somebody gets hurt.
Would you stop thinking about what everyone wants? Stop thinking about what I want, what he wants, what your parents want. What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
So the entire relationship just felt okay, this is, maybe that's why it feels so good to them, because it is so toxic and they're so mired in that already. And then it just becomes problematic that they weren't able to kind of realize maybe this relationship belongs with this younger version of me when I didn't know a lot about myself, and this is how I explored relationships. It's they just kind of kept believing that is the pinnacle of love because we were so passionate about each other and the highs were so high, but and the lows, making it so low is what made the highs as high as it was and so full of ecstasy. When Noah asks out, Allie, and he's dangling off the roller coaster, do you guys find it romantic? Do you think it's cute? And would you want someone to do that to you? Let us know in the comments down below.
I think there is a total false narrative that this movie really exemplifies, which is this idea that the really high highs make the really low lows worth it. Not true.
No.
In a healthy relationship, your lows are not that low. They're not, you'll have some lows, but they're not what we see between Allie and Noah, where there is actual abuse going on in their relationship, where there's fists thrown in this relationship. And so we know that this is not what a healthy relationship looks like, and no high is worth the lows that these two endure with each other. But to your point too, it all starts from the very beginning, the way that he asks her out. It is such a boundary violation. And I think this is one of my least favorite parts about this movie. There's a lot I don't like, but this in particular is a thing that really grinds my gears, is the way the movie really romanticizes this idea of the chase. And we know, we both work as dating coaches, we work with single folks all the time, and especially single women really have this idea in their head. And you see this all the time, even in just reality TV dating shows. We talk a lot about The Bachelor on this channel, but there is this really prevalent idea that the chase is what makes great romance. And this idea of never give up, keep chasing her, eventually she'll come around. That kind of attitude around love is treated as something that is romantic. This idea of like trying to change someone's no to a yes instead of accepting rejection is treated as like, oh wow, he like really likes her. He's really into her. That's how he shows devotion. And it's actually an awful blueprint because it teaches men to push past people's boundaries, and worse, it teaches women to believe that this is somehow desirable in a show of a man who really truly wants you and deserves your time. People walk away from this movie feeling like, or believing that being pursued is a mark of, I don't know, how desired you are, or that you should want someone to work for it because that shows that they love you that much. It makes women themselves almost expect this from their partners, and it almost makes them like these like willing kind of complicit parties in the erosion of their own boundaries and their own agency. So that's kind of my least favorite part about this movie. And it's funny because that's how they meet. It's the first thing that happens.
Exactly. And that was so brilliantly and excellently put, because I totally agree that like the way that the relationship is set up, it's so attractive that he's an assertive man. He knows what he wants. But it's never about what we want. It always just feels like his perspective is just being shoehorned onto her. At the end of the movie, when, you know, like they have the affair, she's married, he has a relationship with a person that he's not even emotionally involved with. He told her, like, it's not about what I want, what your husband wants, what your parents want, it's about what you want. And that really limited selfish mentality of pursuing love just based on, like, love conquers all, love is everything, you can blow up your life for love, I think is so symptomatic to like a very immature young way of perceiving relationships and love, because love is a collaboration. It's something that you work on someone with. It's an equal partnership for them to be like, what do you want? And whatever you want, I want that too. You can't manage your relationship like that. There's no way that those two parts can align all the time enough. Like, you really do have to negotiate and compromise and communicate about certain things, but the relationship in the movie never showcases that. It's always about, like, you know, like you brought up the scene of the waves where she's like splashing in the waves and he's googly eyed over her. That conversation they had at the beach was one of the most benign conversations I've ever heard.
Do you think in another life I could have been a bird?
What do you mean?
Like reincarnation?
I don't know.
I think I could.
It wasn't deep, it wasn't provocative, it wasn't trying to get to know each other. It was like, you know, beautiful scene, whatever conversation, pleasure, and like physical chemistry, dramatic grand gesture. And then that's kind of how the relationship is. It just feels very like roller coastery.
And that's the funny thing. It's like, honestly, if their relationship was left at that, just like joy, pleasure, physicality, summer love, I think actually it would be perfectly fine, because sometimes you do just have relationships that are just like that, and that's it. But it doesn't have to turn into this whole, I'm going to love you for the rest of my life thing. I don't really know you very well, and I'm going to devote everything to you. It doesn't have to turn into all of that. If it was just left at that, I would have been like, oh, this is great. Like, look at these two, like, just enjoying each other's company. Enjoying each other's company is great. And, like, that's what is, like, it's like that was the part that, like, worked, and then it got blown into this big ol', like, I don't know, like toxic push-pull dynamic.
I thought that it was very interesting that Noah and Allie were pining over each other. Of course they were, because they didn't know each other. Like, once you really get to know each other and the bubble bursts, you see the reality of who someone is. I felt like with Noah, when he was kind of yelling, because they yell. They don't have productive, calm communication. They yell and they bicker and they shout in each other's faces. Like, when she was like, I had an affair and I need to talk to my husband because I made a promise to him. Noah was like, it's about money. It's about security. It's about what the guy could give you. But Allie in the movie has never chosen Noah over money. She's always chosen Noah as opposed to like the security and safety. but Noah just has a chip on his shoulder that he's bringing into the conversation, and that's what happens when you don't work on your shit, when you're not in a relationship. Like, this is how it plays out. So it was really fascinating to just see how much they were idealizing each other and how much they were bringing in the subjective bias of how they perceived the relationship and why it didn't work out.
Right, absolutely. It is a really funny thing that happens between the two of them where even after they end things, I mean, they were young when their initial romance began. She was a teenager and he was, I don't know, several years older than her. But they were young when it began, and then years pass before they reconnect. And somehow they still think that they're so in love and they know each other well enough to blow up their lives, dump their current partners, and, you know, choose to be together. When, in fact, by the time that they meet again, they are strangers, right? Everything that, even if they think that they knew each other when they were younger, by the time that you were an adult, she was a nurse at war, right? She had all of these life experiences that I'm sure affected her, shaped her, changed her. Ditto on him. His father dies. He goes off to work in some other city or something. They have all these life experiences that change them as people, and yet they come back together, and as if the love from the past, what they knew each other from the past, is still relevant now. It's not. And so, not that it's not relevant, but so much has changed that there is so much more of a getting to know each other that needs to occur before they can really know whether or not our relationship will work between them. Because God knows I am a different person from when I was 18.
I was just going to say.
How I am now. So for someone who loved me when I was 18 to come back and say, I'm still in love with you, it's like, the girl that you fell in love with doesn't even exist anymore. She's in the past with your memories, but she's not here. That's not me.
So well said.
So it's so funny that they come together as if it's all still true, as if they know each other now,
right,
when they don't.
Right. It brings up that question of the one that got away, because that very concept, the very pathology behind that myth, you never have them, so then the longing is never realized, and it is very rare for two people to see each other as the same exact person. I think it's more typical for maybe Noah to see Allie as that, but for Allie to move on in the relationship, or for her to have fond memories of Noah, but not to the point of implosion. So it was very unique, and it kind of has this mentality of love is everything, love conquers all. Love is so powerful that despite any of our experiences, despite any of these new partners who walk into our life, you are still the one that I love above everything else. But I would argue that's pretty naive, and it shows stunted growth on both of their parts. For them to see such a toxic relationship when they were 17, 18, 19 as the relationship that drives the rest of their life. You know, it's okay, Allie and Noah are maybe not all the way, they're not all the way there, because for them to get in that perspective, I just felt, I don't know, it was kind of uncomfortable watching it. It's not I would ever tell people this is not what you should do in your life, but I would urge people to really think about why they're choosing that partner again. Are you choosing them because it's out of growth, or is it to fulfill some fantasy you have from when you were 17? And if it's the latter, that's not something the person can ever give you. That's very much something that you should work on internally and figure out why you want this person to fulfill this impossible thing.
That is so well said. It is a fantasy, really. The one that got away, that's another reason that I think this movie is so beloved. Unfortunately, that's another reason why this movie is so beloved, and why so many people, I think, resonate with this movie. It's because it's all about this love that you lost when you were younger coming back into your adult life and fulfilling this fantasy, right? And I think many of us have maybe some past love, a crush from high school that never made it, or whatever, that guy who broke up with you and you just really wanted it to work. I think a lot of people have that a little bit of that feeling. But to your point, it's there needs to be this recognition that you have that longing. We're humans, we have those feelings. We don't we can't control it. But
it's normal. Yeah.
That's human. But to your point, it's like growth is recognizing like, hey, I have these feelings. And also, I also recognize that in real life, this person re-entered my life. That's not going to fulfill the thing that I lost when I was younger, because everything is different. This person is different. I'm different. The context is different. I don't know what our relationship would be like in real life now if we got back together. And there's so much relearning that would have to happen. Will we repeat the same patterns from when we were younger? We see with Noah and Allie, they do. He even says this. It's like 2 days in and we're already bickering again. Like he says something like that, right? So clearly they're just repeating
I shuddered when he said that. I was like, oh my God. Like,
clearly they're still repeating their same toxic bullshit from when they were kids. And so they have nothing has changed. So I don't know why they think that this relationship is going to work this time when it didn't work the last time, because clearly nothing has changed. Nothing about how they view each other has changed. Nothing about how they are moving through relationships has changed. And so this whole idea of like the one who got away, it doesn't work because, it makes sense. There is something really alluring about it. It makes sense why people want to just indulge and give into it and just have that fantasy, because it's that dopamine rush that you get from acquiring something that you desired so much, that has been so out of reach for so long. It like plays up on that neurochemistry. Once you actually acquire it, you get that reward rush, that rush of dopamine that makes you think, oh my gosh, this is just something that clearly I wanted so much and it's so good for me that I can't help it. That's just who I love. You can't fight who you love. And we believe that rush, that feeling is big romance, and that is the thing that should define how I choose my partners, as opposed to the stable fiance who has been there with me this whole time since we've met. He's been good to me. He treats me well. He communicates with me. I'm talking about whatever that James Marsden character is. He's sweet. Treats her well. He listens and pays attention. He doesn't yell at her ever. He's the stable partner that in many ways is the healthier relationship for her to be with. And yet, because there's that hit of when she finally is back with Noah and she realizes that everything that she felt, the yearning that she wanted, all of the time that it took her to get over him, it's all about to be fulfilled in this one moment where he admits that he's been thinking about her the whole time too. They bone it out. It's like you get such a rush from being able to just lean in and indulge in that, and it gets confused. She confuses it for, oh, well, I must just love him more than I love my current partner. And the truth is it that you love this person more, or is it just the neurochemistry of getting something that you had wanted for so long and having that fantasy fulfilled? It's a question that obviously the movie doesn't explore. And I think that unfortunately it's a lesson that a lot of people watching this movie learn, that actually passion is more important than stability. Actually, I should pursue the big feeling over the healthy love. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of people move through relationships today. They chase the big feelings instead of actually looking for stability, looking for healthy dynamics, looking for long, sustainable commitment. They just want the rush. And that's because of movies like this that really romanticize making that choice of passion over stability.
Totally. And I know that The Notebook is classified as this very rom-com, you can't take it seriously, but when I watched this movie, I was in my teens. I was highly impressionable. It's not like I put this movie as the pinnacle of how I wanted to move in romantic relationships, but it was definitely something I thought about. It was definitely something that was very memeable and quotable. And the funny thing about the movie, which I think is the biggest inconsistency to your point, is them saying that the passion can burn into the stability that they both crave, because it kind of, showed that after she left her husband and went back to Noah's house, they had a happy relationship. They became highly devoted to each other, and they were so in love that even in her dementia and old age, he still read to her and showed up for her and did all of these things to show that I love you so much, no matter what, I'm always going to be there. And that's the mistakening that romantic, highly infatuated, highly intoxicating, abusive relationship can turn into that. unless you do a ton of work. So like, I just think that the movie having both of those elements is why their earlier relationship is so glorified, because it's like, okay, well, now you see Noah and he's this old man and he's so in love with Allie. He reads to her every single day. This means that the relationship in the past is inherently good, when I would argue that those two things are separate, and that is kind of the fantastical version of what would occur with this. What would really happen is probably they would get together, live with each other, and realize, one summer and 1 week does not make a relationship. And a lot of the same ways that we're fighting, the same ways that we are just fundamentally incompatible will drive us apart. I am more well matched for this kind of person, not because of security and because of money, but just because like her husband was a person that did not exhibit any of the qualities that Noah exhibited to Allie, which was like yelling, putting her down, forcing her to do things outside of her will. I mean, he did do some things like that when he was like, I want to ask you out. Then he shows up in like a really fancy military uniform. But in each of those encounters, he never pushed her. It was like the version of Noah that she actually should have had, you know? Like someone that pursued her but gave her a lot of autonomy to choose what she wanted. And I would argue is a healthier, better relationship for her.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much to love about that
So
guy.
much to love.
Lon. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that he was perfect, but the way that he, even after he knew that she was with another man, how he would, oh my God, it brings tears to my eyes, the way he was like, you know, I want you to be happy. Like, if you want, like, if we can work on it, we can work on it. But if you want to be with him, like, I support you. Like, that love was so big. It wasn't about possession. It wasn't about having her at all costs. It wasn't about that. It was like, let's communicate and talk about what's going on here. And can I satisfy the things that you want? If not, I want you to go and do the thing that you feel like you got to do. And like, I think that his character, to me, that was real love on display, was that fiance character. Like, that was real big-hearted love. And sure, it's not as shiny and dramatic and adrenaline rush as the Noah love, but the Lon love was really the kind of love that you can grow old with, right? That's the kind of love that you can...
Yes.
Like, don't you feel like Lon is actually the one who would probably have been by her side...
Yes.
reading to her in her dementia, as opposed to the Noah character? It's like hard to say. Like, I mean, maybe, I don't know. What I will say is that, like, I do think that because so many people look to this movie as a reference point for romance, I actually do feel like there are a lot of men out there who behave in this way, this like very aggressively assertive, semi-possessive way, but they translate it into quote-unquote devotion. And it's definitely extremely unhealthy in many ways. And yet it delivers on something that I think a lot of women want, which is to be so desired by a man that they will, almost lose their, more rational part of their brain to like possess you. I think a lot of women have almost been fooled into wanting that. And so in a lot of ways, the behavior that Noah exhibits, I'm sure like a lot of people want that in a partner, unfortunately. And so it's hard to say, even though Lon is clearly the healthier love, I think a lot of people would pick a Noah love over a Lon love, which is sad.
Right. And this is where the movie does fall short, because The Notebook does feature an aspirational relationship, and it is Lon and Allie. Like, they're the relationship that we need to strive towards. It's the fact that when we were younger, we all date a guy that's kind of a jerk, or we date someone that is not the right person for us, but it's very dramatic, it's very intoxicating, the fights are very like this, but making up is amazing too. But then you break up with them, you do some work on yourself, and you grow out of it. You meet another person that can give you the things that you're looking for. You meet someone that can communicate with you, can be friends with your parents, makes you laugh, takes you out to all of these fun activities you have a full life with. She definitely had glimpses of that with Noah, but I think with Lon, it felt a lot more sustainable. They had time together, and like they met when she was a nurse tending to his wounds, that already starts off the relationship on such a different foot than how it started off with Noah and Allie. And then for their relationship to progress, and like when he proposed to her, he kind of like read her to filth. Like, I don't know if you want to be with me because like your lifelong act is defying your parents. Like this is, I don't know if it's attractive for you to want to be with me, but I love you and I want to take care of you, and I've already asked your parents' permission. Do you want to marry me? He didn't say marry me. He gave her a question and she responded and consented into like whatever relationship they were co-creating together. And like after the affair too, he didn't yell, he didn't like do anything physically abusive towards her. He didn't run to her parents. He said, these are the options I could do, but I love you and I want to talk to you about it, because infidelity isn't always a deal breaker. It just happens to be like a point in the relationship where some intervention is required. And Allie chose to kind of like collapse all of that and just say, no, I'm going back to Noah and I'm going back to my old ways. Like that's kind of what I felt like the Notebook was. It was Allie growing up and then regressing. And these two men just representing alternative paths for her. And she just took the path that a lot of people travel, and I believe it's because of contemporary media like this.
Absolutely. I think that is a really good summation of what the actual story of this movie is, at least as far as the relationship psychology. It just truly is the story of a woman who grows up and then kind of goes back to her old ways in a way that is honestly sad. And, maybe to your point, over the course of their lives, as after they, I guess, get married and have kids and have a family, they go through their lives, and by the time they're old, they have grown up and they have together done the work. But the fact that the movie doesn't show us any of that makes it really hard to root for them. I almost wish, sure, is it possible that Noah grows up into someone who is a loving, considerate, stable partner for her? Maybe, yeah. I'm not saying that it's just because that's how he was when he was 19, that's how he's going to be forever, but we don't ever get to see that, and so it's hard to really look at this movie as something that is aspirational, because we never actually see the hardest part, which is doing the work to unlearn your toxic dynamic, doing the work to stop bickering and yelling at each other whenever a conflict arises. We never see that part, which is actually the hardest part of being in a relationship. The hardest part is figuring out how to be so freaking upset at someone and not lash out at them, not yell at them, not raise your voice, not take it out on them, not threaten to leave, not do anything, but sit there and talk it out. That is the hardest thing to do, and that is the work that all couples, like anyone in a long-term relationship, is doing that work of trying to figure out how to be in conflict with each other. And that is the stuff of real love. It is such an act of love to sit there in your feelings and be really upset and try to find a way to be loving to your partner while you are upset with them. And instead Noah goes, you're a pain in the ass, but you're my pain in the ass, or basically whatever. That's basically what he says, something along those lines. And it's like, and I hear that so often these days. Like I see it from couples all the time where they like describe each other as like, oh, she's such an asshole, but like she nags me all the time, but whatever, I love her. Or like, oh my God, he like is so mean to me all the time, but that's what real love is. And it's like, no guys, I know you learned that from the Notebook, but that's actually not what it is. Like criticizing and like taking jabs at each other, that's not what a healthy relationship looks like. I'm not saying that people can't joke around and have like little jabs at each other, but them doing it in the context of conflict, that is hugely different, and it really shows the way that they actually think about each other, right? And the negative ways, all these negative interpretations they have about each other. And unlearning all of that, watching them unlearn all of that, I think could have maybe sold us on the relationship if we had gotten to see it, but we never do. We just see the high of fantasy being realized. We just see the high and the adrenaline of the one that got away coming back into your life. And I get why that makes the movie exciting and thrilling and romantic. Like I said, there's so many good scenes. There's so many good lines of dialogue that are so memorable from this movie. But unfortunately, good high drama dialogue does not make an actual sustainable long-term relationship. So
Dude, I could not have said it better myself. It was just, if you watch the movie again, if you watch The Notebook, just kind of see it as Allie and her love story just being a love story. It's nothing to follow. It's not anything to glorify. It's just a person that has a lot of baggage and a lot of emotional stuff that she's working towards, and she's making a choice in a partner based on that. So in that way, her and Noah are perfectly suited for each other because they're both not really willing to do the work. Lon, I think that he is also, like, to have someone like Lon, she would have to really communicate and really show that she can earn his trust back and do all of these things that would indicate to him that she is invested in working on the relationship. But her not being able to do that for Noah is exactly where she's at. And that's a much better way of viewing the relationship and framing framing their love story.
So what are your thoughts about The Notebook? What do you think about the lessons about love that this movie portrays and is trying to teach us? Leave your thoughts down below. Let's keep this conversation going. If you've watched to this point in the video and you are not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. We do this every week, and we will be back next week with another movie analysis type thing going on. So stay tuned. Bye.
Bye.